Hey there, welcome back to the Grandiose Project. My name is John Skane. I hope you like this white on white look that I'm going for today. It's my minimalist look. It's actually, I'm just getting ready to start a new painting and that's what's on the wall. I am today going to show you some of the photographs that I use for these paintings and for inspiration, and kind of explain the difference between how I use photographs for paintings and how I make photographs for actual photography's sake. And the reason is because they're two kind of totally separate ways that I use and take photographs when I'm out taking them. Sometimes I'm just out taking photographs that I know are going to be purely reference, and I'm not too worried about the lighting or the composition, and I'm just trying to record something kind of as an image that I know I can take back to the studio and tweak it and use it the way I want to. Then the other part is actually trying to make a good photograph and trying to pay attention to the light and the composition and the subject and all the things that go into actual photography. So I'm going to show you some examples on the computer that explain kind of the differences and show you my thought process when I'm working with photography and kind of how I separate and approach the two types of photography that I use. Now there's a third type of photography that I've always used in my art making career, and that's sort of the documentation part. And that would be like taking slides of images or, nowadays just digital images of my work that I can either submit to galleries or contests or show to collectors or use for my website or Instagram or whatever. And I'll explain kind of how I take those photos in a different episode, but that's another way that photography is really important to me as an artist. So let's get started and we'll go over to the computer and I will show you how I approach photography.
Okay, so here we are at the desktop and I'm gonna open up Lightroom. And in Lightroom, I'm already in the Grandiose collection that I created. And you'll notice that there are all these little folders here, and each one of these folders contains images from different times. So this Grandiose collection also has the Eastern Sierra and the Dolomites from my trip last summer. And so I've already created folders and organized the images into them. If you're not familiar with Lightroom, there are a bunch of tutorials about it on the internet and on YouTube, so you can check it out there. I might do a tutorial at some point, but there's so many that it's kind of pointless. Anyways, here are images that I have saved for the Grandiose Project, and you notice there are even some of the old donkey photos in this collection, but that's because I used them in a previous video to show some of the stuff that I had done before. If I were to go to this Mount Whitney folder here and click on it, it's going to show you all of my pictures that I've put in there of the Mount Whitney and Eastern Sierra area. And so if I scroll down, you can see I've got a lot in there. Let me just go to my most recent trip and let me explain a couple of these different types of photos. If you look at like this one, for instance, this is more of a reference photo for this little arch and kind of an idea that I had about distance, between like this background area and this foreground area of the arch. Now this was never intended to be a great photograph. It's more about a spatial relationship that I wanted to try to play with in the landscape for the paintings. Now this was not the greatest photograph, but I thought it was kind of interesting because you had this little crescent moon inside of the arch here. Once again, this could be something that I maybe do something with for the paintings that wasn't really possible with the photograph. Then I've got images like this that were just probably going to be reference for paintings, although I probably could do something with this if I got creative with the editing. So when you're in Lightroom, you can create all sorts of folders and tags and different attributes so that you can find your photos and label them easily. And I encourage you, if you don't know Lightroom, to check it out. It's a really good photo management system. And also, it's a great developing system. And I probably do 80% of my developing in Lightroom, and then, the rest into Photoshop when I really want to take a photo to a level that is a little bit hard to achieve in Lightroom, like using luminosity masks and doing maybe some creative stuff like, moving skies and all that kind of thing. So if we look here, there are a lot of photos that are either tagged with a flag or with stars. And usually when I import images, I start by going through and culling all of the images from a shoot and then giving it a flag. From there, I take those images and I usually give them a star rating, either 1, 2, or 3, depending on how good I think it is or what I want to do with it. Sometimes I'll use a color rating, and that would be if I'm trying to group them for a specific purpose. So now I'm going to show you some photos that are for both reference and artistic reasons. So you might recognize this shape right here. I use this in a lot of the early paintings for the Mount Whitney series. You can see it right here. And here is some of it. And then in the final painting, this one back here, but also this little study. So this image was one that was taken, the light was kind of nice that morning. It was hitting the, it was this sort of side light that was lighting up this rock formation, and it looked nice. But, it's not necessarily a great photograph. But it did work really well as a reference photo for those first Mount Whitney paintings. So this version has been processed, and I'm going to reset the file so that it's the original image and not having this sort of cast that I gave it for the paintings. So that's what the original raw file looked like just out of the camera. And then you can see, if I go back here, what I did to it to use it for a reference photo for the paintings. Here's another one that was taken as reference, and I've done a bunch of little drawings and studies and stuff like this, for instance. And of course, here it is in this other painting. So those are reference photos. Now, this photo was intended to be an artistic photo. And I had some really nice sunset light happening. And, it's just a nice sunset picture of Mount Whitney. But now this one was in the morning, and the light never kind of got that pink color that I was hoping for. But then this image is still a really good one for reference, because there's a lot of detail in it that I can use to go in and make drawings and paintings from. And then there's an image like this, which was always intended to be for artistic reasons, and that's why I set up and waited for the sun to come down so that I could get this sun star effect right here. And so that was really an intentional kind of photo that I took, with the idea of it just being about a photograph and not for the painting. Now here's another rock formation that was intended to be for photography and not for painting necessarily. And that's the raw file. And here are a couple of different edits that I made. And that was a more intentional photograph because of the light that was happening. Now here's a horizontal version of it. And that was always intended to be an artistic photograph. Now, could it be for a painting? Sure. But I would use it as just a reference for the shape and maybe some light, and not try to just render out and copy the photograph. Now this one was intended to be as a artistic photo, and this deer was, kind of coming up over this brush, and I had a long lens, and you get this nice background separation from the subject. And so, it's a nice, pleasing photograph of this animal. But I could also use this deer in some of the paintings if I want. And so I have other images of, there was a whole little herd of them that was wandering around this brush. And I got a bunch of different shots. So, maybe one of these little guys will creep into one of the paintings at some point. Okay, so those are some examples of my thought process when I'm looking through my photographs for this project. And I just wanted to kind of explain some of the differences between the reference photos and the artistic photos. Now, I've got some exciting news that I want to share, and that is that I am going back to the Dolomites in Italy. And I will be there photographing and videoing and drawing and getting a lot of material for that part of the Grandiose Project. So over the next few weeks, I will be releasing videos from my trip last summer and showing you some of the paintings that I've already done over the last year. Stay tuned, and if you like this, please give it a like and consider giving me some comments in the section down below. Let me know what you think of the videos so far, and let me know if there's anything you want to see in regards to editing. I might do some editing videos in the near future that show you how I edit photos in different ways for reference or for artistic sake. Okay, so until next time, see you later, and thanks for watching the Grandiose Project.